legacy of the Hendry family and its unlimited contributions to Canadian horse racing rests today in a lush floral garden on acres of land that is now the home of the Royal Botanical Gardens. At the turn of the century, it housed William Hendry's famed Valley Farm stables of Aldershot, Ontario. For more than a century, Hendry and his heirs were prominent in horse racing. His sons and grandsons dedicated the Hendry Gates to mark the entrance to his farm, which they donated to the people of Hamilton in 1931. It was later turned over as the site for the Royal Botanical Gardens. Prominent in the garden is a monument to his son George M. Hendry, like his father, a president of the Ontario Jockey Club, and a granite gravestone of Hendry's great thoroughbred Martimas, winner of the Rich Futurity in New York. Martimas won the richest race for 2-year-olds in North America in 1898 when he won the Futurity Stakes. Martimas was a multiple stakes winner on U.S. tracks and at Woodbine and Fort Erie. He also sired King's Plate winners Kelvin and Chimneys. Ed White of Hamilton, who trained Martimas, was one of the leading trainers at the turn of the century. He ended the 8-year reign of the Seagram stable's domination of the Queen's Plate in 1899 when he won with William Hendry's filly Butterscotch. He also won the plate in 1902 with Lyddite and in 1918 with Springside. Captain Aubrey, a bay horse foaled in 1904, had a solid 4-year racing career, posting 45 wins in 81 heats before an injury forced his retirement to stud. Bred in Massachusetts, the son of Peter the Great was imported to Prince Edward Island to improve the breed of trotters. He later stood in Nova Scotia. His most famous offspring was Bill Sharon. Charles Boyle's career as an owner, breeder, and trainer of champion horses in the U.S. and Canada spanned a 40-year period from the 1860s to the turn of the 20th century. A resident of Woodstock, he won the 3rd running of the Queen's Plate with Palermo. He owned and trained 1883 plate winner Roddy Pringle, and later won the plate with Ferdinand and Bon Eno for the Seagrams in 1897 and 1898. Harold Wellwood began a 65-year career as a trainer and driver about 1920 on the Ontario Fall Fair circuit. In 1940, he campaigned at the inaugural night racing meet at Roosevelt Raceway on Long Island, New York. Widely known and respected in both Canada and the U.S., he drove the winners of more than 2,500 races, including the Canadian Pacing Derby in 1946. He was a driving force in the early years of the Ontario Sire Stakes program. Albert E. Diamond was president of the OJC from 1924 to 42, and its honorary president in 1943 and 44. He was also president of the Incorporated Canadian Racing Association and a member of Parliament for Algoma District. A noted breeder in Barrie, he was a partner with his father and brother in Brookdale Stable, winner of 4 plates with Thessalon, Sapper, Heresy, and Horrendacy. John Diamond Jr., who rode his father's horse in the 1891 Queen's Plate, trained and selected much of the bloodstock that provided the highly successful Brookdale Stable of Barrie, with its numerous victories in Ontario. He trained plate winners Thessalon and Sapper, and also bred and trained Heresy until his sudden death at age 35 prior to Heresy's plate win in 1912. Nathaniel Diamond, a wealthy lumberman, spent thousands to build a hugely successful racing and breeding establishment in Barrie in the 1890s. The green and orange silks of his Brookdale stable took on the Seagrams, Hendry's, and Davies stables in that era. His plate winners were Thessalon, named after the town he built his first lumber mill, and Sapper. John R. Braden, a bay horse by John R. Gentry, was foaled in 1912 in Tennessee and was one of the greatest of the many outstanding pacers purchased by community groups in New Brunswick to represent their towns against the great American pacers on the competitive circuit. At the age of 13, the legendary horse recorded the fastest mile of the year over a half-mile track when he won in 2:05 1/4 at Fredericton. He had 207 wins in 391 heats. Morris Fishman, an ex-newsie and boxer, was a jockey before a career as a trainer of stakes class horses for a successful public stable. His first good horse was High Honors, winner of the Jockey Club and the Seagram Cups in 1940. Canada's Teddy, winner of the Canadian International in 1948, was his best horse. He was a founding member of the HBPA in 1946. Leslie E. McLeod, a native of Prince Edward Island, was deeply involved in the tracing of standardbred bloodlines and was responsible with the idea of compiling an annual summary of harness races in North America, which led to the inauguration in 1885 of Wallace's yearbook, which contained all the summaries for that season. He later became associate editor of John H. Wallace's monthly publication. Dr. R.K. Doc Hodgson, the most respected and knowledgeable horseman in the 1930s and 40s, Doc was a veterinary surgeon, breeder, and trainer of thoroughbreds, show horses, and steeplechasers. Unofficial trainer of plate winners Bunty Lawless and Willie the Kid. He also trained Willie Morrissey's champion filly Casa Camara, as well as numerous other stakes winners. Vernon West and Vic Roundtree ranked among the finest trainers and drivers during the pioneer days of standardbred racing in Canada. A native of Western Ontario, he trained and drove the champion race-winning pacer of 1919, Jack Powers, to 16 wins. He won the prestigious Canadian Pacing Derby at New Hamburg twice with the Diplomat and Captain Wright. Among his other leading horses were Lee Note and Patricia Baldwin. Robert Davies' feats in horse racing are unparalleled. He's the only man to ride in the Queen's Plate as well as own, train, and breed winners of the Plate. Davies, who later became one of Toronto's wealthiest citizens, also owned standardbreds and was first vice president of the Ontario Jockey Club from 1895 to 1904. His Thorncliffe stable was a dominant outfit until the 1940s. Willie Morrissey was the most caustic and controversial man ever involved in racing in Canada. He went from Toronto's Cabbagetown to becoming one of the most influential men in the development of racing and the breeding industry. He owned and bred Bunty Lawless and Casa Camara, both members of the Hall of Fame, and plate winner Willie the Kid. He founded the HBPA in Canada in 1949 for the lowly paid workers in the backstretch.